Okay. Welcome, welcome. Hello. Let's see now. Okay. Yeah. Welcome to this just chatting stream. No gameplay. This is just me streaming and recording my lore videos to just get uninterrupted practice speaking and to make sure Twitch knows I'm still alive. And I'm pretty sure that's the purpose of just chatting. Uh, yeah, not to play games, just to put your VTuber model or your face on camera and just talk with whoever comes in. So this recording will be about an hour, 45 minutes, and it will be. Mm, Hold on, let me try and readjust this. How's this looking? No. Yeah, let me just measure this a little bit. All right, welcome to Wizard Radio. I'm your Wizard Lore Master, Pedoria Nealon, and here is my really nice VTuber model that I really love. I have yet to get a dedicated camera for it, but I promise you I am trying to get a webcam to hook it up so that people can see my mouth move and to see my head turn. And tonight it will just be a just chatting video about first edition Scion Hero. I did post a few videos on YouTube, but then I will admit I read straight from the book, and I'm not certain if that was allowed or not, or if it would strike me, or if it went through all good, but I decided to delete them anyway and try again in my own words to try and actually do this justice, because I bought the book when it came out, relatively when the game started, back in, hold on, it'll have the, should have the publication date. Hmm. Yeah, back in 2007. Oh. Oh no. It had to remind me how old it was. But anyway, Scion was a relatively interesting game. It was originally made by White Wolf, the same people who make the World of Darkness games. And it was made in a similar manner to Exalted, where you played as a real life demigod, someone with godly blood in your veins, that you could start out relatively weak and then slowly make your way to becoming a god, and it fascinated me. I could never find anyone to play with, but just the concept itself really struck a chord in my mythology loving brain. And the fact that it's set in the everyday world, it's not set in some ancient time the where Achilles and Hercules and Jason walked the earth and they were household names. And it's not set in some alternate universe. And honestly, the closest analog is the Percy Jackson books, which, when I also read those and I really liked them, they're one of my favorite series. It seemed to me to be as if Rick Riordan took a Scion game and transferred it into a actual storyline similar to how the Dragonlance writers wrote books about their Dungeons and Dragons campaigns. So to begin with, Scions are children of the gods. They are mortals with a divine spark born in them, thanks to divine blood from being the direct offspring of a god, or being from a divine heritage that a god awakens when they adopt them. And this is first edition. There is a new second edition they are currently working through, where there's 4 books instead of 3. In first edition, there is Scion Hero, where you immediately have your divine blood awakened, and you're given your weapons and animals and stuff that show you're a partly divine being. There's Demigod, where you become precisely half god and half mortal, and it's a step up from being a hero. And then the final one in the game is where you're a full blown god and you go into the overworld to fight the Titans directly. Um, in second edition, there's Hero, where you start out as a slightly above average mortal, but you don't have any real divine powers. Excuse me, you have a few really special skills, and you're like a half a step or a step above even the greatest minds or the finest athletes, but you are not fully divine. It is only after the parents visit you and awaken your blood and give you and make you a hero is when you become a true half god and you can start gaining power and fame in order to become a demigod and then a god. And that's another interesting thing about Scion. The It's a tabletop role playing game, and the role playing part of it is gaining experience, leveling up, and getting stronger. And that denotes the first and the greatest resource, fate. Actually, no, legend. I'm sorry, legend. Legend is the Scion's power. It is what they draw from to do their miracles and their heroic things, like running faster than a mortal can, picking up and throwing cars around, or even calling down lightning and thunder. And heroes start out with very weak legends, and part of Scion is playing your character and building your legend, and that means becoming more and more famous, and people and other things come to recognize you and your legend and the things you've done, and as they talk, the storyteller decides whether or not that increases your legend, and as that increases, you get more and more legend points or power to dip into to do more and more godly things, and that is the experience engine or the power engine that lets you climb up to being a demigod and a god. And of course, legend is a double-edged sword, and the counter legend is fate. And fate is basically the storyteller. It's the Deus Ex Machina, where the storyteller can pretty much do whatever they want, even screw a character over and say it's fate. I mean, well, of course, the storyteller has to have a really good reason to do it. It can't just do it because he's pissed at the player or hates the player, because that'll cause a revolt at the table. But fate is a good way of kind of shifting things back into focus, or even bailing the party out if you all get your right yourselves into a corner. But it's also a way for the storyteller to hit a player in the back of the head if their character has been acting like too chaotic evil, or have been doing too many stupid things, and the storyteller can have all that just come back on the Scion in one unfortunate disaster, say a natural disaster, or a mortal enemy showing up at the most inopportune time, or even a monster rising up out of the ocean. And that's a term called fate binding that was in the that's in both editions, but in this one, it's the storyteller using fate to bind NPCs and pretty much turn them into characters the storyteller can use to help and harm the players and bolster their legend. And it happens when a Scion uses too much of their power around ordinary people, and yeah, as the Scion's legend grows and he uses his power on ordinary people, I I think it's I have to get for along in the book, but I think it is a role for fate binding, either that or if the Scion's legend is powerful enough, say demigod and above, that fate binding can be automatic depending on the storyteller's preferences. And then the fateful aura is what I talked about before, where the Scion's legend gives the storyteller leeway to pretty much do whatever they want story wise and say it was the Scion's presence. Like if a Scion with a high legend or a demigod walks into town or a city, the storyteller can hit him with a tornado or a lightning storm they have to save people from, or they can have an ancient giant living under the hill wake up and rise up to attack the Scion, or whatever have you. Pretty much just impetus for the storyteller to throw whatever they want at the Scion to continue their adventures or just to make them look cool. And because of that, at least in Edition 1 in Hero, Scions get birthrights that automatically awaken their divine blood. They're most often relics, but they can be animal companions, mentors, uh, even squads of soldiers. Like there's a like sorry, I've been having trouble with my sinuses lately. Like in like Ares likes to give his scions gifts of ant soldiers as bodyguards or soldiers to help test the leadership potential of his children. And then the scion's powers or boons are basically uh, gamified versions of the powers of the universe scions can use that are tied to their divine parents. Like scions of Ares have power over war and battle, or scions of Zeus have power over the sky and thunder, at least once they get strong enough. And then the more non-magical powers are the epic attributes. These are attributes that show the scion being physically better than people, physically and mentally and socially, and that's what it's separated into is physical, mental, and social classes. And certain scions are better at certain things. Like certain scions are stronger, faster, and hardier than even other scions. Others are more attractive or uglier than others, and some are smarter than others. Just as you see in myths. I mean, Hermes gets by on his wits and not his battle arms, Ares in a, whereas Ares is pretty much known for being a engine of destruction, and Athena is kind of a balance who is known as much for her combat prowess as she is for her wisdom. Yeah, before I do the pantheons, let me go ahead and do a more in-depth overview of what it goes into making a scion. Let's see. Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Yes. So yes, the first step in a scion of making a scion is the calling. It's basically a summary of what a scion is pushed to do by their blood inherited from their parents, which I'll admit is kind of predetermined, but that is part of the game of Scion is balancing the predestination of your blood and the pushings of fate against your human free will and what and how that shapes your own story. Like, and for this I'll use the actually no, I don't want to end up getting jammed up for reciting from the book. So, like a scion of Zeus, because Zeus is king of the gods, his scions have a bit of leeway in what they are. And here, let's see. Zeus, where are you? Alright. Yeah. Even the book says his scions are a diverse and unruly bunch, so Zeus's scions tend to be generalists, such as, after all, you have Heracles, who was basically the god of strength, and Helen of Troy, who was basically a scion or a demigoddess of beauty. So yeah, uh, basically it's and the epic attributes Zeus passes down to his children are epic charisma, epic manipulation, and epic strength. So they are often pushed to be leaders and have the strength of arms to back up their claim to leadership. So, so yeah, say Zeus is one of Zeus. If you played, if let's say you're making a scion of Zeus, calling would be, I don't know, a mm, let's say minor nobility, born the son of a minor Greek family who Zeus took a liking to the matron a few years back and pulled his old trick of seducing her by taking the form of her husband. And let's call him, yeah, Alexos. Alexos was born the last in a, let's say, 8 children to this minor Greek nobility who can trace their bloodline all the way back to King Minos of Crete. And even among the excellent pedigree of the, even among the excellence of his brothers and sisters, he stood out. And his calling was, let's call him noble, driven to excel. And yeah, we'll do the attributes. Yes, the attributes are what the scion is good at. And Zeus tends to pass down Okay, yeah. Oh yes, these are the regular human versions of attributes. And so let's give Alexos. Yeah, you have to prioritize it as. Oh, hold on a second. Yes, yes, you have to have a primary, a secondary, and a tertiary. So let's see, what is Alexos most good at? Let's see, what is he most proficient at? Let's make him most proficient at social. That'll be his primary. He is a beautiful cherubic. He is a physical Adonis with a perfectly sculpted, ideal Greek body, with is a natural leader, but is not above subtly manipulating people to get what he wants. The secondary. Let's make intelligence his secondary. He's well educated and erudite to match his intelligence because, according to his family's perception of noblesse oblige, he also has to understand what it means to lead, not just having the social abilities to lead. And that means tertiary will be strength. He's not a flat sluggard by any stretch of the imagination, and he takes the Greek ideals of excellence in sports very seriously. He's just not as strong. He's not just not inhumanly strong or fast. He is almost an Olympic level athlete, but he can't go much farther than that, at least at the moment. He's inhumanly attractive and inhumanly smart and perceptive and witty, but he's only about Olympic level as an athlete, and that should give you an idea of what creating a Scion means, becoming attribute by giving you by sorry my my apologies through the attributes that even the dump stat of the tertiary you can still make your Scion somewhat above average even in your worst attribute. And then after you've done that, you add the epic attributes. And I am going to give him epic charisma, epic manipulation, and epic strength, which means that he will be slightly inhumanly strong. That he will be able to perform feats of strength greater than even the best bodybuilder in the world, despite his lean athletic frame. And that's the thing is, this is just the first template you use. As you play the game and as you level up your character, you can put points into whatever you want and kind of take them in any direction you really want, either generalizing them or hyper specializing them into one area. Because after that is the abilities. And the abilities are what Scions can learn. And these abilities are academics, basically education, animal kin, ability with animals, art, that the ability to create art, uh, athletics, how fit you are, awareness, how perceptive and aware of your surroundings you are, brawl, your hand-to-hand fighting ability, Command, your ability to command and be obeyed. Control, vehicles. Craft, how good you are at making things. See, empathy, how good you are at reading people and manipulating them. Fortitude, how physically tough you are. Integrity, how uh, mentally and basically your morality, how mentally and emotionally tough you are. Investigation, detective work. Larceny, uh, pickpocketing. Marksmanship, how well you can aim a gun or a bow. Medicine, anything from first aid to being a world class surgeon. Melee, how good you are with weapons. Occult, how much you understand the hidden knowledge of either your culture or other cultures, which helps in dealing with some of the odder things, especially as you increase in legend and kind of step outside the modern world. Politics, self explanatory. Presence, self explanatory. Well, actually, presence is paired with your social attributes to make sure how well people pay attention to you. Science, basically any scientific field, but in the game, you actually have to narrow it down to a specialty, like science chemistry or science astrology, to show which field you're specialized in. And you can buy it multiple times, but you have to buy each one separately. Stealth, how you can move around unseen. Survival, basically how good of a Boy Scout you are and how good you are from Boy Scouts to survivalists. And Throne, how good you are tossing stuff. And Zeus's abilities are awareness, command, integrity, presence, politics, and throne. Uh, and I'm going to give Alexos all of these because awareness, it helps him keep his head, knows where he's at.